みんながチャットの中にダーッと100人ぐらいがなだれ込んできて、でラオシャンロン貼ってますみたいなログがブワーってずっと流れてて、でそれに群がっていくその人たちがいる。
いざ入ったらラオ何したらいいのみたいな、
全然分からない教えてくださいみたいな、尻尾に引かれてやられてしまいますみたいな。何してたらいい。
This interview was posted last year for the 20th anniversary of Monster Hunter. It was between the current producer of the franchise, Ryozo Tsujimoto, and the first game director, Kaname Fujioka. And in this interview, they're talking about the origins of the Monster Hunter franchise, and I love this clip because it reminds me so much of this book I'm currently reading, House of Leaves. And anybody familiar with that book is also going to be familiar with the online forums where people come together to try to uncover the secrets of it. And it's really cool because it allows the community to go beyond just the pages and lends the book this sort of mythical quality. I get that same feeling from this clip. Like, I can almost imagine the first time somebody chopped off Arathian's tail, they went to the internet forums to tell everybody about it and added to the, communal knowledge of how to take down the dragon. And it makes me think about what's always made Monster Hunter so special from other RPGs. And so many RPGs, as you're leveling up, you're adorning more armor and you're dealing more damage and taking more damage. And so your enemies have to get harder as you progress. And this is good because it can provide a consistent challenge throughout your playthrough. My problem with it is how developers will attach that difficulty to the people that you fight. Developers seem to often resort to giving you difficulty in very artificial ways. Like, you are dealing more damage and taking more damage, but your enemy's statistics are just increased so that killing them takes longer and longer, and being killed becomes quicker and quicker. And so it can often feel like you are not facing more challenging enemies, just more so that you're facing higher stat points. And this is technically also true in Monster Hunter, but the developers have found a really creative way to fight that feeling of disempowerment. And so, as much as you are progressing your attack and your defense stats, you are also progressing one more key element to your character, and that's your own knowledge. In Monster Hunter, taking on harder and harder challenges is less to do with artificial damage outputs and more to do with the knowledge that you are taking into each battle. And this makes perfect sense because what sets the hunter apart from so many other video game heroes is that you're not just a badass hunter with a giant fucking sword, you're also a researcher. So you should know every monster, its strengths, its weaknesses, its pathing cycles. You should know which weapons are going to be most effective on the monsters and where specifically those weapons are going to be most effective on each monster. You should know the terrain itself, from its topography to its vantage points to shortcuts to environmental traps and slinger pickups. You'll need to know your weapon of choice, the flow of each chain of attacks, which ones are going to allow you to reposition and which ones are going to leave you exposed for a Kongala to land its most devastating attack. Because getting better at slaying monsters has less to do with getting better gear. It'll help, but much like a fighting game, it's mostly to do with you, the player, your knowledge, and your ability to use that knowledge to control the battlefield. And you'll continue to evolve that knowledge, because as you grow stronger and gain higher ranks, a monster that you have faced dozens and dozens of times, suddenly, it gets new attacks. And that strategy that you have been working with for so many hours suddenly doesn't work anymore. And so you have to evolve your knowledge and change your tactics and alter the tools that you bring into these battles. And this system really allows you to form a sort of relationship with every single monster and a sort of like respect for it, for learning all of your tricks and battling against it. It's so rare in so many other games for you to have that respect and for you to have to change your tactics around the same enemy and form that relationship with your enemies. And it's an element of Monster Hunter that I just haven't been able to find with any other game on the market. I love Monster Hunter. I love these weapons. I love these monsters. I love the charm in this world and the progression and the intentionality of everything. And I was so excited for Monster Hunter Wilds to finally come out. And when it did, I was really surprised about one aspect of the game. And no, I'm not talking about the performance. What I was surprised about is that Monster Hunter Wilds is really fucking fast. I never played Monster Hunter Rise, but I know that it did a lot to speed up the pace of the Monster Hunter franchise in general. But in playing Monster Hunter Generations in preparation for the release of Wilds, the difference in speed is night and day. Between your mount, focus mode, and a secret third thing that I'll be getting to later, Wilds does everything in its power to speed up you, the player, and the game as a whole. But we'll start with your mount, the secret. So previously in Monster Hunter games, what would happen if you wanted to heal yourself or sharpen your weapons is that you would have to stand still and wait for a lengthy animation to take place. And you had to be really careful about this, because if you did not time it correctly, well, you better hope that a Palico is keeping your cart warm. But on a secret, you can just hop on its back and run circles around the monster while you're healing or sharpening your weapon, and there really isn't much that the monster can do to stop you. And so normally in Monster Hunter, you had this really unique pace to every single fight, where before every battle, you're preparing yourself, eating your meals and cooking meat and bringing all of the right tools into the battle. And then when the fight finally happens, your health is slowly degrading, your weapons are becoming more dull, you're doing less damage, and when you finally do enough damage to that monster, it runs away and the music dies down, and you're left to catch your breath and take a moment to look over your inventory and begin the journey once more. And I think that this was such a special pace to every single fight, filled with white knuckle action and these moments of relief and meditation. But in Wilds, the secret changes that pacing mechanism drastically, because a moment that was once used for relief is now replaced by a chase sequence. And it's still a pretty unique pacing mechanism for a fight, but just a very different one. And then there's focus mode. And how this works is by dealing enough damage to a particular spot on a monster, then a wound will appear. And by entering focus mode, those wounds will be highlighted. And from here, you can actually do what's called a focus strike. And these moves are some of the most powerful and stylish moves in the game. And it'll destroy the wound and potentially even stun the monster. And you are going to be doing this move all the damn time, because there is no limit to how much you can use this move. But the most important aspect of focus mode is that within this, you can actually reorient yourself mid-attack. And this may not sound like a big deal to those who aren't familiar with the franchise, but let me tell you, in previous Monster Hunter games, the entire skill curve relied around positioning and commitment to every single attack chain. See, when you start an attack chain, you are locked into a single unalterable path unless you either sheath your weapon, dodge out of the way, or do a very specific attack command that will reorient yourself. And this made pulling off that final attack in a chain really tricky, but also so satisfying to actually pull off. But with focus mode, if a monster moves out of the way or I lined it up incorrectly, I can just shift myself in the direction that I want. And as long as the monster isn't far enough from me, I'm going to land that attack. So those are two pretty significant changes to the Monster Hunter franchise. But what about that secret third thing I had mentioned earlier? Okay, so story time. When I was playing through the campaign, I was having a good time, but I wasn't immersed in it. I was missing something. And so, to deal with that, I did what I normally do in video games, and I went into the settings menu to see if I could change the heads-up display. And from here, I found one of the most extensive suites of customization and accessibility options I have ever seen in a game. From this menu, I altered the camera position and proximity to give it that sort of over-the-shoulder camera view, similar to the recent God of War titles. I thought my support NPCs were too helpful, so I was able to get rid of some of the abilities they were able to bring out to the battlefield. I even changed the link between monsters and the objective, and I'll be honest, I don't even really know what that did, but I was sure as hell able to do it. And I really have to commend Capcom for this, because you genuinely can alter or completely remove every single aspect of this heads-up display. You can get rid of your health bar, or the mini-map, or the item bar, the slinger pickups, or the Scoutfly notifications. Objection! Don't listen to him! He's a scoundrel, a liar, and he kidnapped my brother! Hi, Sweaterless Michael here to tell you the truth. See, I went into those settings to look for one specific feature to change, and that was this fucking thing. I really hope I'm pointing in the right direction. This little icon shows you exactly where the objective is at all times. And I'll admit, this can be useful in certain scenarios, like when you have to talk to an NPC or get a monster to a specific location. However, what this also does is show you exactly, precisely where the monster is at all times. And no matter how hard I tried to look for a way to get rid of this objective marker, I just wasn't able to find one. And I thought that was pretty weird, because in a settings menu as exhaustive as this one, not allowing me to get rid of it wasn't something that Capcom just didn't think of. That was a deliberate omission. And on one hand, I get it, because the zones in this game are so much more vast than they've ever been before. Their topography is so much more vertical. Their landscapes are so much more winding and disorienting, and it could have been hard for the player to keep track of everything. But on the other hand, this unalterable addition really throws a wrench in the Monster Hunter formula. And, well, that being, well, the hunting. Because the hunting is tracking, and the tracking has already been done for you. And Scoutflies are back too, and they can and will show you a breadcrumb trail to the monster. I think that if automated tracking was necessary for Wilds, I think that the design philosophy of World would have been sufficient. where you enter a zone and you have no idea where the monster is until you find its footprints or a pile of its boogers. And then from there, you can have that breadcrumb trail towards the monster, not showing you exactly where it is, but showing you the path of it. But here, you have an objective marker that shows you the location of the monster at all times, a paintball that also tracks the monster at all times, scout flies that show you the most efficient path to that monster, and on top of all of that, your secret can drive itself to those locations without any input from the player! I know gamers get a bad rap, Capcom. I've seen the IGN reviewer playing Cuphead. I know, but some of us are smart. I'm smart. Come on. I'm a big boy. I'm wearing a belt. As it is now, the hunting aspect of Monster Hunter is just far too hand-holdy and strangely over-designed. And it's a shame because the moments that we use to track are also the moments that the player is able to soak up all of the details that Capcom has lovingly crafted and put into these incredible zones. But with this objective marker, I just find myself in a mad dash towards the objective, leaving every single detail a blur for the sake of efficiency and ease of access. With the release of Wilds, I feel like a lot of the conversation has been centered around performance and general difficulty. And while I think that those things are important to talk about, and I understand why they were at the forefront, they admittedly weren't what I was thinking about during my playthrough of Monster Hunter Wilds. Instead, I was thinking about all of these very foundational changes to the franchise, because I think that, oddly enough, what makes this franchise so unique is all of the hindrances the mechanics will throw at you while you race against the clock. All of the slow animations, the need to track, restrictions during combat, they all slow you down as you watch that clock slowly tick away. And it's a really unique and special formula, but one that I don't think Capcom had any interest in, as it may have made the franchise a little more niche. And when I realized this, I was really disappointed, and I was shocked that I wasn't hearing more of this, and I was ready to put down the game for good. That is, until I thought about Skill Up. Now, I can't remember which video this actually comes from, but he essentially says something along the lines of, when reviewing a game, I try to think about what this game is intending, and I judge its success based on how well it is able to achieve those intentions. And so I had to pull myself back and stop looking at it through the lens of what I wanted from Monster Hunter, and instead tried to look at it through the lens of what Capcom wanted. And it was from this perspective that I was able to find a lot more enjoyment with the game. In Wilds, Capcom intended to make a Monster Hunter game that is more approachable. Did they succeed? Yeah, I think that the low rank campaign actually does a really great job at drip feeding mechanics that are going to be essential during late game without ever having the player feel bogged down by all of the systems. Much of the dynamic nature of the game, like the weather system or the roaming monsters, are actually static during low rank, allowing the player to witness these things without actually having to make the player contend with them. It will dole out new gearing systems like decorations and pendants and upgrades without actually making those systems essential. And all of this is wrapped up in a story that, while definitely cheesy, is also admittedly pretty adventurous and sweet and filled with charming and memorable characters.
An ominous carriage, a bloodthirst fit to boil. The fiend nigh devoured me, pointy topper and all.
I think I understand. Probably. I suppose it'll serve as a clue at least. Probably.
In Wilds, Capcom intended on making a Monster Hunter game that is faster than ever before. did they succeed? Absolutely. The secret gets you into fights faster and keeps you in them longer, and the supply pouch can be accessed from your mount so that you're actually preparing for fights while pushing towards it. And the focus mode and the wound system encourage the player to be more aggressive than ever before, especially in late game when monsters can actually heal those wounds. It can often lead to some of the most fast, frantic, and cinematic clashes with monsters that we have ever seen from this franchise, and it is exciting as all hell. In Wilds, Capcom intended on making a Monster Hunter game that is more immersive than ever before. But this, I don't think I could say they succeeded. Now, I'll say this, when you're not in a mission and you are seamlessly walking from a camp out into the open world and you're allowing yourself the opportunity to explore at your own pace and soak in all of the details that Capcom put into this world, I'll say that it is the most immersive experience you can get in this franchise. Because this world is more diverse and dynamic than ever before. These zones are more dynamic, the weather is more dynamic, the ecology is more dynamic. But it can be hard to notice these things because Capcom is so insistent on making everything as fast and approachable as humanly possible. You don't have to search for materials because Capcom already showed you their location on a map. You don't have to track monsters because Capcom gave you 2 automated trackers. You don't have to navigate the environment because Capcom gave you a self-driving dinosaur. And look, I'm thankful that most of these things can be changed in the settings, but it just feels bizarre that a franchise so famous for being challenging, obtuse, and forcefully intentional, having the newest title be so forgiving and so insistent on holding my hand, it just feels wrong. And this sentiment, I think, really sums up my feelings on this game. Because there is so much to praise about Monster Hunter Wilds as a game. But there's also so much that is odd about Wilds as a Monster Hunter game, if that makes any sense. Like, if this was a standalone game, separate from any franchise, I would still have complaints, but I don't think that I would be so torn on it. So many of my complaints aren't necessarily to do with this game itself, but how it serves as a follow-up to such a storied franchise. Like, quest markers aren't inherently bad, but a quest marker in a Dark Souls game? Bad, 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 kill it, kill it, kill it, get out of here! Monster Hunter has always been a bit clunky to engage with. Many veteran fans will know all too well the struggle of going into a mission to catch a bug and forgetting to bring a bug net, only to have to abandon the quest so that they can get that bug net. And you might say to that, well, that doesn't sound very fun. And you'd be right, it isn't. But I'd also argue that that clunky design forced me to engage with the game in a way that I normally wouldn't have to with any other game. And it made for a really unique feeling. But here, all of that clunkiness, all of that intentionality has been chipped away for the sake of accessibility. On its own, I am loving Monster Hunter Wilds. I love fighting these monsters. I love exploring these worlds. I love the depth of the equipment, and I love how these weapons feel. And I'm so happy to see so many people online also loving this game. But in the context of all that came before it, I'm torn on Wilds. I'm torn because I believe that its speed gets in the way of immersion and its approachability gets in the way of intentionality. I'm torn because despite all of the aspects that I love, I fear that with the success of this title, Capcom will feel emboldened to further chip away at all of the aspects of this franchise that made it so special. But most of all, I'm torn because despite all of that, my God, does it feel so good to be a hunter. Hi, if you've made it to the end of the video, thank you so much for sticking around. That really means a lot to me. As you can see, this is my first video, and so I'm still trying to figure everything out, from the video editing software to recording in my very unacoustic room to just my voice in general. And so any and all feedback would be lovely. Some constructive criticisms or recommendations for things I should talk about next would be super, super appreciated. Thank you again so much for making it to the end of the video, and I hope to see you all later. Bye-bye.